Hello everyone, thanks for tuning in to today's second video doing Gazov's Sunday Roundup. For today's second video, so this is going to be your usual Sunday afternoon eclectic mix of this and that. Going to be looking at things like solar activity, sea surface temperature anomalies, what's happening with ENSO, Arctic Oscillation, Northern Atlantic Oscillation, and the weather for the next week to 10 days and beyond as well. So hopefully it'll be quite an interesting watch. The first video up today was the 10th and final Summer 2019 Analogues update. So that's getting together our last batch of analogues for the summer updates. And in just 1 week's time, we'll be releasing the summer forecast. So that video is currently here on the homepage at Gazov. Have a look at that when you're done with this one. And it'll be placed on the summer updates page later on today with a written summary. So you'll be able to come back and read that written summary and also watch the video on demand whenever you would like to do that. The third video today, later on this afternoon, is going to be having a look at the ECMWF, Meteo France and DWD season models for this month. And that's going to take us through the summer and into the autumn, actually. So it's a bit of a long range sort of day at Gazov today. Hope you're enjoying the content. Right, so we'll start off with solar activity for this Gazov's Sunday Roundup. So this is a solar disk on our side of this today from Solar Ham, and we've got one sunspot area just there. Otherwise, very quiet sun. Solar activity is at very low levels and is forecast to remain at very low levels for the next 3 days. Solar Ham is reporting that. This is the Gazov's Sunday Roundup activity tracker, updated by our good friend James Atwill. Big thanks to James for sending this through. So we can see that we're still getting niggles with these sunspots. So we haven't gone into a protracted period of spotlessness for quite some time now. The last one was kind of like end of January through to kind of end of February, start of March. That's the last time we managed to string together like a few weeks of spotless conditions. Since then, I mean, we're at a very low level with sunspots, undoubtedly. But since then, you'll see from the orange line here, which is depicting each individual day's sunspots, you'll see that we are in these regular little jumps upwards. And so the trend lines, which have the thick red and thick green lines, which actually did trend down to the floor of the tracker towards the end of February, down there. Since then, the trend lines have just lifted up a little bit, and this tells us we're still probably some way short of true solar minimum. So we'll know when we go into solar minimum, because we'll have an extended run of spotless conditions. We're just still getting these day by day small numbers of sunspots. I mean, it's not a big number of sunspots at all. Solar activity, as I say, is very low. We keep saying this every week, but solar activity is at very low levels, forecast to remain at very low levels. So this tells us that we're within solar minimum, but we haven't reached the true solar minimum of solar cycle 24 yet. We will know when we do so, I think, because we'll get a protracted run of spotless conditions lasting for several weeks, maybe even a few months. So I would suggest we're probably still around 6-9 months, something like that, away from true solar minimum. But it could be we're even further away. I mean, it may not happen until next year. The forecast actually this solar cycle, this solar minimum, I suppose I should say, are very divided about whether solar minimum will happen in 2019 or 2020. But the way this is going, it may well be that it's going to be more 2020 actually that we reach true solar minimum. But we should wait and see. We might just get a sudden drop, but certainly we are continuing to get these little individual days of sunspots. These are very modest numbers of sunspots, though, bear in mind. I mean, this is a very weak level of solar activity. But I think we'll know really when we're into true solar minimum, because we'll have an extended run of spotlessness. Big thank you to James for sending the tracker through. We shall keep an eye on it over the next few weeks, of course. The reason we look at solar activity is that there is a connection between weak levels of solar activity around solar minimum and an increased risk of northern blocking. So when you're around solar minimum, particularly when you're just after solar minimum, it can sort of coincide with an increased chance of colder winters, in particular with northern blocking. This is how things look in terms of Eurasian snow cover. So we have continued to lose snow, and we are continuing to lose it at a very rapid rate now across Eurasia. So you see that it's becoming restricted really to northern parts of Siberia. There are still some areas of snow just here, down towards more southern parts of eastern Siberia. But the snow is rapidly going now. You expect it to go very quickly from this point on. Once we get through into sort of July, end of June, July, we will be without snow cover away from mountainous areas across Russia and Siberia. So then it'll start coming back as we get through into the autumn, of course. But for the time being, the snow cover is very, very rapidly diminishing as things are warming up very quickly now across Siberia and across Eurasia too. This is how the sea surface temperature anomalies were looking this time last week. We did Gazov's Sunny Roundup last week, so we've got our 3 areas of interest. We've got the Equatorial Pacific Ocean just here, we've got the Northern Pacific up there, and we've got the North Atlantic over there. So that's how things were looking with the oceans this time last week. This is the very latest. So if we deal with ENSO first of all, we have seen a further drop in the sea surface temperature anomalies across the ENSO region. It looks as though El Nino is pretty much over now, I must say. We've seen a further drop in sea surface temperature anomalies over the past week. We even have a little very tiny area of blue slightly below average sea surface temperature anomalies beginning to appear along the central part of the equator in the equatorial Pacific Ocean. They're very, very tiny, but it just tells us that since last week we have seen a further drop in the sea surface temperature, further cooling of the sea surface temperature anomaly. And I think this El Nino is pretty much at an end now. We're waiting to see where we're going to go. I believe the subsurface temperature anomalies are continuing to get cooler. This little spot of blue that we see here is probably from the cooling of the subsurface temperature anomalies in the equatorial Pacific. So things are getting colder at depth in the Pacific Ocean at the moment. That doesn't necessarily mean we're going to go to a cold event. We're going to go to a La Nina. That might be the way things are starting to trend. We'll talk more about that in the ENSO update for this month that we're going to release on Friday. That video will be released, Gazov is on Friday evening. Further north in the Pacific Ocean, very little change over the past week. Generally, it still remains quite warm in this northeastern part of the northern Pacific Ocean around here, so sea surface temperature anomalies are still quite warm there. In the North Atlantic, still quite cold in the northern part of the Atlantic Ocean. Again, that's where things were looking last week, or how things were looking last week. This is the latest. So it's turning colder over towards Newfoundland, interestingly, and maybe warming up a little bit down across the tropical Atlantic. But to the south of Greenland, it's still quite cool as well in this area. So the Atlantic generally is in quite a coolish state in the northern part of the Atlantic. It does look as though warm waters are gathering off the coast of Africa, though, around here. They would be expected to spread out into the tropical Atlantic in the next few weeks. Of course, that's important because that area near the coast of Africa is where we start off the thunderstorms that eventually become tropical storms and hurricanes in the summer. So if the sea surface temperature anomalies are warm around here off this coast of Africa, if it's still warm in the summer and into the autumn, then that will probably help to generate quite an active hurricane season, because it's still very early days on that. The hurricane season doesn't actually formally begin until the 30th of June, so things could look quite different then. I'll keep an eye on the sea surface temperature anomalies, of course, over the next few weeks and months. Southern Oscillation Index is looking like this. This is from the Queensland Government, which I think is part of the Bureau of Meteorology in Australia. The SOI is reflecting the atmospheric state in the Southern Ocean. When the SOI is in its positive phase, then you're going to be in a cold event. You'll be in a La Nina type atmospheric setup. When the SOI is in its negative phase, when you're getting negative numbers, then the atmospheric setup in the Southern Ocean is reflective of an El Nino. It's an El Nino type state. It's measuring the air pressures in terms of barometric pressure between Darwin in Australia and Tahiti in the Southern Pacific Ocean. So these are the daily numbers. These are all provisional, so they are to be confirmed. We did have some very negative numbers around a week ago with the SOI. So, for example, we have the 11th and the 12th of May coming out at minus 22.50 and minus 21.74, and the 13th at minus 14.15. So that's an atmospheric state that's reflective of El Nino, of a continuing sort of El Nino signature. However, past few days have seen positivity of the SOI. So the 16th of May goes positive at plus 2.78, and then the 17th and 18th of May going very positive at plus 14.88 and plus 10.82. Atmospheric setup reflecting a La Nina, a cold event type setup in the Southern Ocean. Very latest for the 19th of May, of course they're ahead of us down in Australia. Very latest is minus 1.05, so going back a little bit negative again. But if it swings between negative and positive, the net effect is going to be, again, to continue to dampen down the El Nino signature. So it really does look as though this El Nino is running down now, running towards its conclusion and coming to the end. And we're waiting to see where things go next. We may take off into an El Nino again through the summer. You can never totally rule that out. May just go back to ENSO neutral and stay there, or we might go back to a cold event into a La Nina, which often does follow an El Nino event. So we're still waiting to see where things are going to go over the next few weeks and months. Arctic Oscillation observed forecast chart is looking like this. So the black line tells where we've been with the Arctic Oscillation. The red line's at the end where the GFS ensembles are forecasting the Arctic Oscillation to go. As with the Southern Oscillation Index, this is just an index that's reflecting the atmospheric state. This time, instead of being in the Southern Pacific Ocean, we're looking at the Arctic, the atmospheric state in the Arctic. So when the AO is in its positive phase, you've got low pressure, typically over the North Pole. When the AO is in its negative phase, you've got high pressure, you've got blocking up over the North Pole. And at the moment, and has been for a little while now, Arctic Oscillation is negative. So we have got high pressure within the northern latitudes. This tells us that. And certainly for the next week to 10 days, the AO is staying in its negative phase too. We do see towards the end, but it's trying to pick back up towards neutral. It's a little bit inconclusive, really, whether that sort of rise in the Arctic Oscillation will actually come up. That's extended range within the GFS ensembles, but it's certainly trying to get itself back towards neutral with the AO by like the beginning of June. So, I mean, we're talking about very extended range within the GFS ensembles. And certainly for the next week to 10 days, it looks like we're keeping appreciable levels of blocking going within the northern latitudes. The North Atlantic Oscillation is also in its negative phase. So again, this shows where we've been with the NEO, with the black line there, and then where the GFS ensembles are forecasting the NEO to go at the end with the red lines. So we've been very negative with the North Atlantic Oscillation through this May. You see that early May we actually went down to there, which is a really sort of negative level of the NEO. Remember, this is just reflecting the atmospheric state again. It's just measuring the air pressures, this time between the Azores and Iceland. That's where we are right now. So we're negative with the NEO still, and the GFS ensemble is actually forecasting the NEO to go even more negative in the next few days, going to a really, really negative level again in the next few days. And then after that, as we move towards the end of May and the beginning of June, again, just seeing hints perhaps that it's trying to lift itself back up towards neutral anyway with the NEO. But really, that's pretty unconvincing. It does look as though through to the end of June, end of May, I should say, beginning of June, that period is there. It looks as though really we're keeping the NEO in negative territory. So this again tells us that we've got a rather unusual setup within the North Atlantic. High pressure is up towards Iceland, and low pressure is going to be around the Azores area with a weakened, perhaps, Azores high, suggesting a weakened Azores high. So we shall keep an eye on that, of course, over the next few days and weeks. This is how the GFS upper air temperature and precipitation ensembles are looking for London for the next couple of weeks. The red line here is the 30-year upper air temperature average for London. We're close to average at the moment. It's going to go a bit warmer in the next few days, actually, looking quite pleasant as we go towards the middle part of the week, but also a little bit on the unsettled side, more on that in a moment. After that, the closing days of May and into the opening days of June actually showed a bit of a cooling trend there. So like the final 2 or 3 days of May looking really quite cool. Then possibly at the very, very end, and this of course it's really extended range, so it's unreliable, but just right at the very end, we might be seeing signs of a bit of a warm up there into the first week of June, but that's a really long way off. Precipitation wise, looks quite unsettled, plenty of showers, if not longer spells of rain coming up over the next few days. Slightly dry a couple of days there around the 23rd of May. And then into the late spring bank holiday weekend, turning quite unsettled once again. So it looks like it's never going to truly settle down now really through to month's end. It looks like we'll have regular showers, and at times there might be some longer spells of rain mixed in with that too. Temperature anomalies from the 19th to 27th of May, very close to average, possibly ever so slightly on the milder than average side. It's not a big deviation, it's around average really with the temperature anomaly. Precipitation anomaly is a little bit surprising. It looks actually a bit drier than average for northwestern parts of the country, with close to average precipitation across Scotland, across some parts of eastern and southeast England. If you'd looked at the ensemble though, with those precipitation spikes, you would think that would be quite a wet sort of week coming up. Really, so perhaps a little bit drier than you might expect given what we're seeing within the GFS ensembles. But then on the other hand, a lot of this precipitation is showers. So some places will perhaps get quite a wet week in the week ahead from these showers. Other places, though, might turn out to be quite dry. If they miss the showers all week, then if they dodge showers all week, then it's going to be relatively dry. Anomaly. So averaging it out, I suppose that's how we're probably coming away with that slightly drier than average signal, particularly for western parts of the country from the 19th to the 27th of May. This is how the GFS operational run is looking for Wednesday. A bit of a ridge across the country on Wednesday. That should be quite a nice day. But by Thursday and Friday, that's breaking down as a trough of low pressure comes in from the Atlantic. So certainly showers in the second half week. There might be some longer spells of rain too. That's Saturday. The Azores high is having a little bit of a go at ridging in on Saturday. But as we go through to Sunday and then to bank holiday Monday, low pressure just rolls in over the top of that little ridge from the Azores high. So any attempt to settle things down into a late spring bank holiday weekend not really coming off, especially for northern and western parts of the country. Looks quite unsettled. And then as we go into the closing days of month, when this low pressure sits off the east coast of Scotland, we start to pull down some quite chilly northerly winds too, so cool and showery as we go into the closing days of May. That's the final day of May. High pressure's out to the north and west of the country, bringing in an easterly wind. Low pressure developing around Biscay. It's having a go at pushing up some heat from the south as we get through to the beginning of June. We're having a go pulling up some hot air from the south. And actually, as we go into a very extended range, taking us into the first week of June, but as far as we can go with GFS now is to Tuesday the 4th of June. As we get there, we do find this ridge of high pressure then building over into the east of the country, pulling in much warmer, even hotter air from the east as the upper air temperatures they're lifting up dramatically. So that would be our first spell of hot weather of the summer through the first week of June. You could envisage temperatures going perhaps around 30 degrees in the southeast, with that getting into the 80s Fahrenheit. So we might not have too long to wait before summer properly starts kicking off. We'll have to see about that. This is how the GFS parallel run is looking. Again, we've got this ridge over the country on Wednesday, and then that starts to break down through Thursday and Friday, bringing showers along with spells of rain into the bank holiday weekend. Looks quite changeable, sort of wash out. Will be plenty of dry weather around over bank holiday weekend, but it's rather cool and rather showery. And probably quite a lot of cloud too. That's bank holiday Monday, looking rather flat westerly. Again, certainly for the north and west, you don't expect showers to be coming through there. Beyond that, staying quite unsettled through the course of up to day 10. This takes us to Wednesday the 29th of May. That is day 10. Again, low pressure is still in control. It's still bringing showers, if not some longer spells of rain. Then moving into the end of May and the beginning of June. Again, we're trying to pull up some warmth from the south. There's the upper air temperatures for Sunday the 2nd of June. Again, real heat there through much of southern Europe in towards France and going in towards Germany. We're just trying to import that into the country via this area of low pressure that's developing around Biscay. It does look a bit explosive, actually, and any heat is quickly pushed away by this developing area of low pressure, but it could be thundery, that. There's the upper air temperatures as far as we can go to Tuesday, the 4th of June. Again, pretty high upper air temperatures sitting just to our east, with low pressure from Biscay moving into the UK. There would be the potential, it's like a Spanish plume really, there is the potential for the thunder with that. Maybe our first Spanish plume of the summer in the first week of June. ECMWF looking like this. Again, we've got the ridge over the country on Wednesday. Should be a rather brighter, drier day, I think, on Wednesday, but not really lasting. Then this trough comes in from the Atlantic through Thursday and Friday, bringing showers, if not perhaps some longer spells of rain too. Into bank holiday weekend, well, on Saturday we have a go at getting a bit of a reach from the Azores high, but by Sunday, more little areas of low pressure rolling in over top of that. So we go back to showery conditions through Sunday and into bank holiday Monday. And we just keep it generally quite showery then into the more extended range. That's how we're looking at day 10. Still quite cool and showery, although this ridge from the Azores high is getting a bit closer to us. If that ridge moves northwards and eastwards, that's what brings us summer. So that pushes in from the southwest. The winds will turn into the south, and that's what brings up those hot temperatures out of Spain and North Africa and the Mediterranean. Typically not lasting all that long. Very quickly you'll start to generate low pressure, a heat low from Spain into the Bay of Biscay, and that heat low then will move northwards. The Azores ridge will slip away to the east. You'll get a Spanish plume, so you'll get a couple of hot days and then followed by a thunderstorm. Famous saying, of course, for the British summer is 3 hot days and a thunderstorm, and that's entirely from the Spanish plume caused by the ridge from the Azores high type pattern. For a more prolonged spell of hot weather, you really need the Azores high to be stronger, to be ridging further north, and you'll usually need to have an area of high pressure over Scandinavia as well. That's the kind of pattern that we had last summer, and when that happens, then you can get prolonged hot weather as we did last summer, of course. But those summers are the exception to the rule. Normally, our summers, what hot spells we get are temporary, quite short-lived, followed by thunderstorms and a breakdown back to cooler westerly winds. Finally, just have a look at CFSV2. So these are the 500 millibar heights, and they're broken down into week periods. The first week period takes us from the 19th to the 25th of May. The coming week has above average heights, high pressure sitting to our north, below average heights across many central parts of Europe, bringing in the wind from an easterly type direction. So again, but the south, it could be a bit showery. Driest conditions are likely to be up in the north. Week 2 is the 26th of May to the 1st of June. The above average heights then migrate out to the west of the country and the northwest. This pulls down cooler sort of northerly type winds. So it's mainly dry again. We've blocked off the Atlantic. There's no particularly wet weather coming in with that. But it does probably signal perhaps quite a cool wind direction. Week 3 is the 2nd through to the 8th of June, with above average heights again sitting just to our west. The wind direction and the jet stream coming in from the west to northwesterly direction with that one. And then we go through to week 4, which is the 9th through to the 15th of June. Above average heights then stretched out through the North Atlantic to the north of Scotland in towards Scandinavia. Below average heights to our south. That's probably bringing in quite a warm easterly wind. But watch out for this area of below average heights around Spain, Portugal and Biscay, because that will be threatening to push up thunder from the south. So maybe there are a few hints here within the model output of something a lot warmer for a while through the early part of June, but possibly we wouldn't have to wait too long before we start generating thunderstorms with a Spanish balloon. This is how June itself is looking with the CFS V2 at the moment. So it's latest 700 millibar high anomaly for June 2019 suggests we have an area of above average height, an anomalous area of above average heights, if you like, to our north and northwest. Therefore, we will be expecting to bring in easterly winds with this June and have quite a lot of dry and fine weather. Temperature anomalies for June 2019 with CFS V2 being forecast to be warmer than average, going for another warmer than average month, with near normal precipitation, no real signal for precipitation, but obviously with high pressure sort of sitting very close to the country, you expect a relatively dry and warm month. So if CFS is right, we are in for a relatively warm and quite a dry start to the summer of 2019. Finally, if you enjoy the videos at the moment, please can you consider becoming a patron for Gaz We've got 60 patrons so far. Hello, a big thank you to all 60 of our patrons. I hope you're enjoying the videos at Gaz Weathers. If you'd like to become a patron of Gaz Weathers, all you need to do is come to Gaz Weathers' Patreon page, sign up for a Patreon account, and then you give an ongoing monthly donation to Gaz Weathers. It can be anything from $1 a month upwards. By doing that, you become a patron. You'll get a mention in the videos. We'll say thank you so much for becoming a patron for Gaz Weathers. Alternatively, you can give a one-off donation through PayPal. This is Gaz Weathers' PayPal page. So it's really simple. You just come to the Gaz Weathers' PayPal page, sign into your PayPal account, and then give a donation of whatever amount you would like to Gaz Weathers. Again, by doing that, excuse me, by doing that, you will get a mention in the videos. We'll say thank you so much for your kindness and generosity, as long as you want one. If you'd rather say anonymously, just leave a little note with your donation and let us know that's how you'd like to do it, and that's absolutely fine. I've had a few people who've chosen to stay anonymous with their donations, and we just say thank you to this anonymous donor. So big thank you to all of the patrons, big thank you to all of the donors for Gaz Weathers. You're helping us to pay for our website and keep the content online, so big thank you to all of you. Right, that is it for the Sunday Roundup for today. Slightly shorter one this week, but I hope you found it interesting and informative. Don't forget to check out those summer analogues. Summer forecast will be released this day next week, so not long to wait now for Gaz Weathers' summer forecast. And come back later on this afternoon when we'll have the ECMWF, Meteo France and DWD seasonal model update for May 2019. It's already recorded. It's quite an interesting watch, so come back for that later on this afternoon. But that's all for now, and thanks for watching.